Hey, thank you so much, Danny, for joining our first ever live stream and recorded Zoom, where we're focused on mastermind discussions with key people who just really just, in your case, just dominates and kicks butt in life. So thank you so much for being here with us. I got to press pause on my side. Hang on, sorry about that. Learning some learning lessons on doing this. Thank you so much for being here with us. I got to press pause on my side. Hang on, sorry about that. Learning some learning lessons. There you go. So I had to mute myself on one end and then off we go. So very cool. So Danny, a lot of folks may watch it live. They may just watch it as a recording down the road. We may flip it and take some snippets of it and rehash it, reshare it with the masses. And you personally, for me, have made an impact for me. What can I say? I mean, one of the first people that I'd seen at Keller Williams North Valley, who you and Lisa Crown were one of the first two people, and Scott Green, three people. I can keep going on, but you were three people who outside the brokerage treated me like a business owner, right? You talked to me as if I was a multi-million-dollar producer, and that resonated with me. I never forgot that. Okay. You told me to treat my business like a business and all things will flow and follow. And that always stuck with me. You believe in faith, family, the business comes and will fit into your priorities, but you have your priorities first and foremost. And if you don't mind, take us back to what got you started in your line of work, a little bit about your family, all the fun stuff.
Wow. Yes. Thank you for that intro. That was awesome. And I'm glad I was able to have a little bit of an impact with you. I'll talk about you a little bit later because I've been so impressed with you over the years, as you know, what I say, the evolution. But yeah, so a little bit about myself, Danny Guerrido. Everyone always do the burrito joke just because it's easy to remember. But I've been with Cutco for 24 years. And what's interesting about my story is I started as a college student at Cal State Northridge. And at the time, I had just finished coaching high school football at St. Francis.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, that doesn't pay a whole lot, although it was a lot of fun. I needed to find like a better opportunity. Found the Cutco job, and I went in for the interview. Wasn't sure what to expect, but I did like the chance of basically building my resume, because one of the things my future brother-in-law at the time told me is like, it doesn't matter what job you do, you always have to talk to people. And in this world, there's a lot of introverted people or shy people, or sometimes they could be super intelligent, but they lack the ability to communicate or express their thoughts or ideas. And I was like, oh man, never thought about that. And so because of that, I thought, well, if I took this Cutco job, it would force me to speak to a lot of people, whether I liked it or not. But at the same time, I would learn and grow in that process. So decided to take on the job. And to be quite honest, I was going to do the job for 1 week. I was like, nobody buys knives, but I was 23 at the time. What did I know? And I wanted to do 10 appointments so that I can get some money to buy my mom and my girlfriend, who's my wife now, Michelle,
Oh,
a gift
wow.
for Christmas, so they wouldn't be mad. Joke's on me because I've been here 24 years. So they seem to work out, right? Some of the things that I tell you that I've really learned along my way is, gosh, there's a lot, but time management. And what's interesting, it's not really time managed because you can't really manage time. As we all know, it's more self-management, right? It's making right
Love that.
choices, right? We know what's right from wrong. And so it's really about that self-management. So I've learned a lot about that.
Mhm.
Definitely have increased my communication skills. My public communication skills have heightened over the years because you had to present. And if you can imagine a young 23-year-old Danny Guerrido going into Mr. and Mrs. whatever Jones, for lack of a better word here, and then they're like 40, 50, 60-year-olds selling them knives, like
Uh,
you got to have, there's got to be some technical techniques and tactical stuff and just proper communication. So I learned all of that. What I loved about working with Cutco was they allowed me to be me, and they allowed me to go to school and work and build my resume and my skill set, especially my personal communication skills with people. That's one thing I loved about them. The other thing I loved is people. I got to talk to people, but I also love the people in our community, in our company. They're really amazing. I've been able to travel a lot. As a matter of fact, tonight, Michelle and I are jumping on a plane to Aruba because
Hey, I
yeah,
thought you guys just came back from there. I thought that was the vacation. And then because the way we scheduled it was like either after your vacation, I didn't know it was before the vacation. So thumbs up for that.
we did a regional trip to Mexico for 4 days, or
Ah,
3 days, and then this is the national trip. So yeah, they spoil us. I'm not complaining. But yeah, so
awesome.
going back to that, so there's a lot of lessons. I mean, I can go on and on, but it's really helped me out. And to this day, I have a little over 4,200 clients that I still work with, interact with follow up and specials and phone calls and things of that nature. And then several years ago, this, Philip, is started the gifting program, and I started doing that in 2006, which was probably not the best time to start the gifting program with real estate and lenders, but I did it and it worked out. And here we are again, right? So, but yeah, so that's kind of like my journey with that, Cutco Hall of Fame. Very blessed with that. I feel real honored.
What
And
year were you inducted into the Hall of Fame?
2009.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
So it's,
you're already a legend when we met, because we met in 14.
yeah,
Yeah, it was 14 when we met. So
yeah.
you already were just like blowing up the game in the 3 years that you had flipped it into the gifting program. That is massive. And then you time on task over that. I mean, now you're just, a whole nother platform. So good for you. That is awesome.
I appreciate that. I appreciate
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
There's a thing that says discipline equals freedom. That's from Jocko Willink and Extreme Ownership in his podcast. But he talks about when you're disciplined long enough, or even Gary Keller says you're not disciplined forever. You're disciplined enough to where it becomes habit,
Mm,
right? So if you're managing yourself and you're tracking kind of where your time goes and all that stuff, that's a discipline you're creating. Jim Rohn has another way of saying it, that discipline weighs ounces and regrets weigh tons. Right. So what may have felt as inconvenient for you when you were 23 through maybe 33, then just became a habit for the rest of your life.
yeah.
Right. Or whatever it took to get you to that Hall of Fame portion of your life. I mean, 4,200 clients, if every year, and obviously numbers are different everywhere we go, but if we had 4,200 people we were working with and 10% reciprocated, and because we were reciprocating with them, then wow, imagine that in a real estate business or whatever business we're in. Obviously, your numbers are different or vast.
Yeah.
You're probably looking at 20, 30%, 40% engagement type of thing. But that goes to show, hey, your top of mind persistency, and
Yes.
not in a salesman way, but really being a resource consultant. If you can take us down that road, like what separates you from someone who's not Hall of Fame? Yeah, you kind of answered some of it, more of the self-management portions, but if there was like an aha that really says, hey, this is why Danny's Hall of Fame, and this is where someone can make that leap, but we
Yeah.
just need to close that gap. What would some of those gaps being closed would be for you and for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wasn't always like this. And, there's things I've learned. I think you've heard this, that it takes, is it 10,000 hours to become a
Yeah,
master?
yeah, totally.
I remember hearing
Dan
that.
Coyle.
Yeah, I remember hearing that like years ago at a conference. And I remember thinking to myself, that's a lot of hours. But it just made sense, and I think about all the greats, right? The Michael Jordans, the Kobe's, the Tiger Woods. I mean, I love sports. And one of the things I learned from my manager, Larry Pollock, and Ed Reed, who's a legend in Cutco, is they'd always say to me, like, what are you doing when people are not watching you? And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like without me telling you, hey, you should make phone calls, or hey, you should go, XYZ. Are you honing your craft? Are you getting better at that? And I was like, oh, and I would go home and like, I would role play like my referral approach or my presentation or my phone approach, or how to handle objections or concerns. And what I learned along the way, when someone gave me an objection or a concern, it wasn't really an objection or concern, although that's what they coined it. What I learned, it was just a lack of information from
Wow.
me to them and them to me. And so what I realized is by asking more questions, I can get more clarity and then provide clarity for them. And so all this came through just, role playing too, you know what I mean? But I would have to go home and work on that. It wasn't just something natural. And it always brings me back to sports because, if you worked on things, you would become better, right? You see all the videos on YouTube and Facebook and that's, there, but it really affected my life. And it's something that I talk to my kids about. It's just like, what are you doing when no one's watching you, and are you being responsible? So those are some things that I learned, early on that helped me out. I wanted to be, competent enough to interact with people. I wanted to be knowledgeable and bring something of value. So I think, practicing your craft is really important, or masterminding. I know you and I have had numerous conversations, which I love, just about just our families, right? Our businesses, our integrity, our core, things of that nature. And so like the question I always ask people, what are you doing outside? Who do you talk to?
Yep.
Who's your circle of influence?
Oh, yeah.
The other day we were in Mexico talking, and we were just masterminding at dinner, and someone said, show me your 5 friends and I'll show you your world. And I was like, yes,
Yes.
who you hang out with. Right. And so I learned that early on, and it's really shaped me who I am today.
Powerful.
So, and I love, like I said, speaking with you and other realtors, because I get to learn a lot, like, oh, wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't understand that. So thank you. So yeah, just, how do you change it, right? How do you close that gap? It's really like, for you, like, how great do you want to be or not? And here's the thing too, like, I remember this in my coaching, it's like, you can't complain if you're not putting in the effort, So if you're not like doing XYZ, don't say anything. You stop. And I tell it to my kids, like, hey, you can't complain because you got a C in class.
Mm-hmm.
You earned that C.
Yes.
That was you.
Right.
So what should you do? Right. And again, and my kids hate it because I do the psychology thing on them. But at the end, I said, let's be honest though. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that reality?
Yeah.
So sometimes the other day I was talking to my daughter, it's like, hey, what's the ideal situation? XYZ. She said, okay, great. Now what should you do? Like,
Powerful.
right. And it's like, but what's going to benefit you more? And we've all made those mistakes. I've done it thousands of times, and you deal with the consequences.
Yep.
Right. So,
Yeah.
but these are things I've just learned over time, which is working the job, and it's really helped me out.
Man, and what you bring is an interconnection to your life, right? The lessons learned here is a foreground or a foreshadow of what you have at home and in your personal life, right? There's a saying that says, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yep.
Right. And you demonstrate, like, even being a father through the lens of being an entrepreneur. And, whether we look at ourselves as just salespeople, or there's another way to look at it. It's almost like hunting, not in the figurative word that we're bringing home food, but we're bringing home resources to pay our bills, live our lives the way we need to live it. And it's a great way for us to just put all that mental energy and these years of just what's inside of us into a craft, and the craft that fulfills us internally. I don't know about you, but when we're impacting families, you're impacting businesses, and bringing those experiences to life, especially when you hear about it or you see it, there's a fulfillment inside of you, yet you're still making it happen financially for your family on top of everything else, right?
Yeah.
And if we were to sum up a little bit, I wrote here, extreme ownership. Like, hey, that C, if you don't take ownership of that, right? In our kids' case, then they just blame it on somebody else. Then them getting a B or an A would depend on somebody else, as opposed to saying, hey, you worked really hard playing those video games to not study and earn that C. So yeah, if we just change that one little piece of the time block or the schedule or the execution, off we go.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I mean, if you can dive a little deep into how you, for the most part, if not the whole time, have kept your family. Because I can't say that from the time Max was born, I was about, family first. I came from a sales environment that really worked my psyche, that, hey, business is first, everything will find its fit. And that's, I will tell you now, it's not the best way to live. Absolutely not.
100%. Yeah. Same, actually. That's why I love you, Philip. We're very identical with that. When I first started, it was like, drive and, work wee hours and all that stuff. But over time, as I evolved and certain things became more important, you and I've had this conversation, especially when you have kids that come into it, or self-care. like things
Yeah.
you want to personally do that come into your life that, hey, I want to do this. So how do I now scale it differently so that I can have those options? How do I create more time? Things of that nature. So yeah, for me, over the time is definitely has changed. I can remember one year specifically, my son decided to play football for the first time, and I'm a big football guy. And we had the LA County Fair, and I just committed to not working Fridays.
There you
And
go.
Friday was a big day to interact with clients and, obviously have some orders come in, but I just said no.
Yep.
So then I was thinking, okay, now that I'm giving up that day, I'm going to work Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. How do I make those 4 days count? And especially on a Wednesday and Thursday when it's a little slower.
Right.
It's really thinking about, well, to me, it's the quality of conversations I have with people. Right. And it's not like forcing anything, but just, hey, how are you? And just, how can I best service you at the highest level? And sometimes that's exactly what I would say. Like,
Yes.
oh, yeah, never, no one's ever said that to me, or wow, well, yeah. And, anyway, and long story short, I had my best show ever. Right. Because you just, you figure things out, when you have your why, I think someone said this to me, when you have your why, the how reveals itself to you.
Wow. When you have your why, your how reveals
Reveals
itself to you.
itself to you. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And I was like, oh man, that, and so, a lot of times I sit deep and thought about like, how can I make that happen? Or I reach out to people. But yeah, man, like I said, I that's kind of how it's manifested for me over the years. And I haven't come to this alone. I'd speak to a lot of different people. And I'm very blessed to have some great people around me and mentors as well. So, but yeah, there you go.
That's incredible. And if we just took time out of our day to figure out why we're doing things, what really moves the needle in our heart and our mind, everything else becomes so much easier. Borrowing Brian Hatkoff, name dropping him, he said, hey, I scheduled my kids' soccer games and their after school events as listing appointments. So if I ever had a client, and granted he worked in commercial, but even in residential for my case, even when there was a conflict there, the priority is the family. Like even today, I'll ask the kids, hey, who's my priority? And they learn to say me and my siblings. And now they've learned to say me, my siblings, and mommy. Because I threw mommy in there, because that is the priority. That's what gets us to go. So anytime we're trying to figure something out, it's like, okay, how do we maximize? And then that led us to leverage. That led us to, you have an assistant, you have a set of systems around you that allow you to make those kind of choices. We came off a training earlier where it's do, defer, delegate, delete. What's most so important that I can do it? What's not so important that I can defer it to later in the day? What's not that important, but someone else has a better superpower or understanding that I can delegate it to? And what's garbage? What can just be deleted, right? And that's the lens that we kind of operate from, and go from there. But no, that's powerful stuff. And bring us to today. I mean, you work with a lot of people in real estate, right? A lot of, and whether we like it or not, or whether we know it or not, we're entrepreneurs. We're business people just like you. And one of the misnomers for those who get into the business, they don't realize they are a business.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Even though you are the person, you're obviously not an employee to your brokerage, and you can't wait for your brokerage to feed you. It's really, you are the one out there. What are some of the things that you've done to grow your business, to impact? I mean, you've impacted me, but impact other clients, people along that way. How are the hows working for you? Because we got your why down.
Yeah.
Right. What's the hows? So how does that come about for you?
Yeah, the hows. The biggest word that comes to mind when you were talking right now is service. And I think that's a big thing for me, is how can I be of service and value to other people? As you know, Philip, I do closing gifts for a lot of realtors and lenders and businesses and things of that nature. And it's kind of unique, because, I'm all about love and appreciation and gratitude. And I found that through gifting, that's a great way to do that. The hows are like, for me, I freak out if I don't make a certain amount of phone calls or I don't check a certain amount of emails per day.
Right.
Like, it's like, because I feel lack of service.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. Trust me, I make tons of mistakes. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I'm 75 emails in deep. Like I gotta catch up, and it's crazy, but I do my best to follow up, and at the same time putting my family first. But service is key. I love educating people on not just a Cutco product and what it could do for them residentially. I mean,
Mhm.
just before this phone call, I had one of my clients reach out to me like, hey, I want to get my daughter a set. And I'm like, oh my God, like how cool. Like, why? And she's like, oh, she grew up with Cutco. Like that's all she knows. And I was like,
That's
okay.
awesome.
And I was like, but why? And she's like, because she's gonna have it forever. I'm like, there you go. And I love that.
Uh,
So, she's going to have it for the rest of her life. And it was just a really cool, conversation. And we just got a little starter set, but it worked out really well. But I love that, right? And then we went over, like, I asked her, like, well, does your daughter eat like you, cook like you? No. And so we switched it up and like, well, based on what you said, here's my recommendations. What are your thoughts? And she was like, yes. And I was like, awesome, and boom, done. So, educating people like that is really important. Again, like I said, providing that service, asking questions. But for me, making, 20, 25 phone calls daily is important, you know, and, honestly, and you probably know this, and most people in the business know, not everyone picks up the phone, and that's okay. And what I used to do was just hang up and then make the next phone call. Then I started leaving voice messages, but I was like, okay, it's cool, but yeah. So then I started leaving video text.
Video,
Yeah.
yes.
And I was thinking about this, and maybe I know haven't created this. I'm just stealing this for somebody, but it makes me feel good to send a video, but I also love receiving those from people. And whenever someone sends me a video message, like, what's up, Danny? Sorry, I missed your call, but thanks for, and they're videoing it. Maybe they're walking, or I've gotten video of people from like, hey, I'm at the Laker game, the Dodger game, or I'm hiking, or I love those.
Wow.
And it really means a lot to me. So I wanted to do that back. And so like what I'll do is I'll just hang up and go, hey, Philip, it's Danny. Was thinking about you today, made a little bit of time to just kind of reach out and say, hey, hope things are good. If you have time, shoot me a message or do me a video, whatever, move on. And that's kind of like my touch. I don't really expect a return, but sometimes they do. And then, that whole process. So I like doing stuff like that, that's important to me. Like I said, following with emails, because those are important. And then also the process of, I come to your office, like I was there last week, I think, in Calabasas.
Oh, it was the one that was at Disneyland at, so my bad.
Okay, Disneyland trumps everything. So happy
Okay.
right? But going to the office once a year, sometimes twice a year, to share a gifting program and how do I love on my clients. And there's a lot of great things, and don't get me wrong, like I know a lot of people do different types of gifts for their clients, and that is awesome because they're doing something. The challenge is that majority of the gifts are consumed, gone, spent, eaten, or
Mhm.
just gone. And then
Yep.
there's no remembrance, and one of the challenges that I hear from realtors is retention or
Mm.
repeat business or
Yep.
referrals. And so like, how do I do that without bombarding my clients with newsletters, emails, chats, and that's
Right.
where Go comes in. And we just take the product and we engrave it. And the benefits of that, it's in their kitchen, number one room used every day.
Mhm.
Number one item used in the kitchen is a knife. Your brand is on there. You get the write-off. And I mean, I can go on and on and on, and I'll be honest, for some people, it's not the sexiest thing to give a knife because they're like, it's a knife. But you tell me what else is going to stay in their kitchen 5, 10, 15, 20, 60 years and still have your information on it. There's only,
Right.
and I see this all the time. And some people might hate me for this, and I'm guilty of it too, but like, they'll post like the flour, the basket, the wine, and the sign, and that's cool because you have to promote yourself. But someone was teaching me at a conference, like, who's that really about?
Oh, yeah, it's about the realtor.
And I was like, oh, damn. And who should it be about? And I was like, oh, and it hit me. I think I heard about this maybe 2-3 years ago, and it hit me like, oh crap. Yeah. And so like, that's what I'm working with now, is like trying to educate people, like, what's it about? And I try to do that myself with
Oh,
my
yeah.
clients. And I'm not perfect. Don't get me wrong. I'm still working on it. But what I found with the closing gift program that we provide, it is all about them because they get it. They get the product, they get to use it. 2 years from now, when you call them, it's not like Philip who, it's like, hey, Philip, how are you?
That's
Because
right.
you live in their kitchen, you know? I love that. And I learned that from Scott Hemmelstein, you know, Scott. And he had a situation where a client left, I think, to Colorado or something like that.
Mhm.
Years later, they moved back. Actually, it might have been the same day I met you that first time at Bowl back in 2015. And then in 2019, they called him like, hey, we want to move back. And he asked them, how you remember calling me? And the wife was like, what do you mean? You live in my kitchen. And that's where I get the line. And he was just like, oh my God, boom. Just getting
Wow,
one of those, you know. You
awesome.
have your story you
Yeah,
mentioned.
we had another recent one, a client going through a divorce. We actually didn't represent them. They had our Cutco knife because we gave it to them. They actually called Lester Policarpio, high five to Les, because he was helping them with their refinance at one time, just different things. And then he actually took the listing and he was like, "Oh my God, I totally forgot that I did their loan because you referred them." So we sent it back and they were like, "Oh, hey, you were the one we were trying to get a hold of because we have your knife." And I thought that was hilarious. But in that such scenario, and it happens quite often. And here's a running, not necessarily a joke, but we do a lot of thrift store shopping because we kind of enjoy it every so often. And we're out there, you never see Cutco knives on display there for sale, right? They're not like trying to sell like a box of Cutco. It's just going to end up in somebody's house, and they're just going to keep them because they're that darn good, you
Right.
know. And something to kind of put it all together is, you want to be around people that resonate with your mission and message, right? Because when I look at who we surround ourselves with, it really becomes like this echo chamber of, wow, hey, I'm attracting people that are similar in my beliefs and the way I do things and the way I choose to like live life. And it helps because then I know you're not out there just hawking knives to hawk knives. You're actually out there improving our businesses. And by improving our businesses, we're able to take our message out to more people,
Yeah.
right? And our mission is to change lives today and change legacies forevermore. And it's kind of like here, you love them and I wrote it down here. You'll have it forever, right? We're changing lives forever and legacies for the best, right? With our resources and connections, and who better to be in business and network with folks who are on a similar mission,
Yeah.
keeping faith and family first, and understand that everything else will find its way to fit, and off we go. But Danny, this was cool. You're actually our first like live interview. We didn't need to do this at Sagebrush or anything like that.
Oh.
And I think you full page plus this page behind here of just note taking.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to disseminate this into my other notes here. You know what? We didn't have any questions on the Zoom live feed, and we'll get better at getting this out there.
Yeah.
But thank you, I should say, and thank you for your time, brother. We're always a call, text message away. You changed my life with books, with knowledge, just different things that have really made an impact in our lives. Surprise and delight, high five. That was actually from you, Danny, not
Yes.
from others that I've heard it from.
Yes. No,
Gary Keller may have been like resonating with you. He asked all his top producers to list out their listing steps, right? And on average, the pages were 2 to 3 pages in length of all the steps you do in a listing. And then he said, well, take that and find out what is the top 20% of things and put it down to 1 page or 1 small paragraph. And not that I was in the room with Gary, that was my maps coach who brought that up. And I immediately said, surprise and delight. Where there's 6, 7, 8 points of the experience where you can surprise and delight your families, right? Your clientele. And I got that from you. That was one of those pieces that we had learned from your book, Giftology, right? And it took me a while to read it, or I'll be honest, I'm a late adopter, late to the game, late to the party.
Yeah.
But once we got that, we really are doing our best to systematize that and put that together. But I truly appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. We can always jump on the phone a little later, but much love and respect to you, brother. And just keep crushing it. Keep doing you.
Thank you, man. And thanks for the opportunity. This was great. And hopefully some people got a couple of nuggets out of it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome, brother. Keep crushing life, man. Take care. See
Awesome.
you.
Peace.